oil, is there gas in it, is there oil in it?
Oh, you
It's a
do?
throttle. I said, this doesn't have a throttle. Well, it's something I else I can tell you.
All right.
I'll tell you.
Are you all set, Charles?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming and being with us. This is our, I thought this, we would celebrate Father's Day, so hence the little Father's Day favorite cookies, breakfast cookies, as Nick said. But very glad you're all here. This is our opportunity to meet Dave Schofield, who is our new general manager of the Georgetown Light Department, because as we know, our friend Wayne Snow recently retired, and Dave's come on and will continue the work forward. So I'm going to let Dave introduce himself, and then there'll be some time for questions. In July, we'll take July off for men's breakfast, because that first week is the 4th, and we will actually be on vacation. But in August, we'll meet again, the first Thursday in August. I don't know who yet I'll grab to speak, but we'll have something good to eat, and we'll have a speaker, so stay tuned. So if anybody needs anything else to eat, let me know, because we sell more pancakes.
Like a lobster.
Oh, well, that's, and somebody else was asking for steak and eggs, and we know what Charlie wants. All right, no, but let me know, and I can easily get another one.
I don't think you should leave the door open.
I know, walked right into it. So thank you, Dave, for coming.
Thanks for
being
having
here.
me.
I'm just gonna sit around.
Okay. Is that right, Sean? Okay. Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. My name is Dave Schofield, and I'm the new general manager for the Georgetown Municipal Light Plant. And I've been in town with my family about 4 years now, and we live down on Bartlett Drive, which we love, right on Pentucket Pond. I have two young sons, 8 and 10, Hunter and Logan. And so I'll go right into my experience and what brought me up to this job here. I started in the electrical utility business as an electrical lineman back in the late 80s, early 90s, and all along I've been working as a lineman on the utility side, as well as maintaining a career in the U.S. Army Reserve, which I recently retired from, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the fun stuff we did then. But I was a lineman in the U.S. Army too, which is a very rare thing. When I was in it, that job existed only in the reserves, and there were only 2 units that did it, and we were both together, we were located together. And so I started line work actually in the Army back in, like I said, 1990. Before that, I had been in the Army about 4 years before I transferred into this unit that was going to change my life, because I ended up making a career out of it. And before that, I was a combat engineer. So we demolitions, mine, countermine stuff, things like that, which was interesting. But I ended up all Corps of Engineers stuff in the Army, and it was a transfer into this specialized group. So it was that led me into the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 104, where I did my apprenticeship. And I worked on some great projects, the electrification of the Northeast Corridor. You've heard of the Acela train, that high-speed electric train? Well, that job, I was a young lineman working on that job. The job lasted a long time. It was 150 miles long, the job. The biggest job probably any lineman out of that local or in the area ever worked. And it was a lot of redundancy, as you can imagine, 150 miles of building the same structure, putting the same line up, and it's a catenary system, which means it's overhead as opposed to third rail. And the catenary designation comes from the sag of the conductor going, and then you have a pantograph on these, and they travel at enormous speeds. I think it was 100, on the straightaways, 150, 160 miles an hour on those trains. I've yet to go on it, and I want to go on there because I want to tell my kids, hey, I worked on this. But that was one interesting job that we worked on. Yeah, like I said, it was long. We would have to pack our lunch. We'd go out on high rail gear, which are trucks with rail equipment that would drop down, and we would go out in the middle of nowhere. And you know, if you forgot your lunch that day, you were in trouble. You better have a good friend that had an extra sandwich. And so I did my apprenticeship there, and I had an opportunity to go to Hingham Municipal Light, very similar, a little bit bigger than Georgetown, as a lineman. And great town. I grew up in Quincy, so it wasn't too far away, and I lived in Quincy at the time. So I worked there for about 3 years, and another opportunity came to go to Taunton Municipal Light, which is the largest municipal public power utility in Massachusetts. There are 40 municipal light plants, and Taunton is the largest by far, I think. And I worked there for 9 years, and that was great because it was a bigger system. It was almost like working for an investor-owned utility, your National Grid, your NSTAR. So I got a lot of experience, technical experience. And then, you know, I felt I was a pretty good lineman, and an opportunity came up to be a supervisor in Peabody 4 years ago. And they needed a construction and maintenance supervisor to run their line department and take care of construction and maintain the system. So I took that job, and that was a little far away from Easton, where we were living at the time. So we had, it was a big decision, because we had to decide to move up to the North Shore. Now, I'm a South Shore guy, and we don't move to the North Shore. You know, it's like, you know, where's my passport? You know, do I have to take a ocean liner to get there? So anyway, we talked about it. My wife was very supportive. Said, geez, you know, you could do this and you could make a difference, which is what I wanted to do. And we made the decision, and I said, you gotta find us a place to live. And I said, I gotta be honest, my wife, which I'll get into, but my wife is not from around here, anywhere near here. And I said, I don't know much about the North. How can you not know about the North Shore? Geez, you only lived in Quincy. I said, look, it's like 2 different countries, all right? I don't know. So she goes on Craigslist and looks for a house to rent, and finds a house for rent on Eagle Lane in Georgetown. And she said, you ever hear of Georgetown? I said, no, I haven't heard of Georgetown. She said, well, it's near Ipswich and Rye. I said, oh yeah, out there, okay, I get it. So yeah. I said, oh, that looks great. Let's do. We'll move there till we figure out the area, and then we'll figure out where we want to live. Well, as it turns out, you know, Georgetown charmed the pants off us, and we both said we really want to live here. This is a wonderful, wonderful town. We want to raise our kids here, and so we for the probably 2 or 3 years, we kind of bounced around looking for houses, and we settled at a really nice place down in Bartlett Drive, in a great community, and that's where we live today. Just recently, the job, Wayne decided to retire, and Wayne Snow, the prior general manager, who I'm sure most of you know, great guy, did a great job, left me in excellent shape as the new general manager. So he said he'd had enough, and he retired, and good luck to him. Although I still have him in once in a while because I need him, and I don't want him to get bored. So that job came up, and I threw my hat in the ring, and I really wasn't sure what your light commissioners were looking for. I have a lot of technical experience, but there's a business component. When you manage a group like that, you really have to wear a lot of hats. You could be out helping one of your troublemen troubleshoot a problem in somebody's yard one moment, and executing a contract to buy $5 million worth of power, you know, the next. It's you have to really keep a lot of balls in the air, and that's what I'm trying to do, and as I'm learning more about it. So I didn't really know what the commissioners were looking for, but as it turns out, the way that Georgetown Municipal Light is structured, it favors technical type manager, and it works well for us. We have very talented staff, and it works out well. So I got the job. I was pretty surprised, actually, that I did, but I was very happy, you know, working in the town that we love so much and decided to make our home. And my wife was thrilled, and it's been great. I'm still very, you know, the honeymoon is still there for me. That's my experience on the civilian side. As I mentioned, the whole time I was working on the civilian side, I maintained a military career in the Army, and I went from a private and I retired as a chief warrant officer, and just in 2009, so it was about 26 years. I went into the Army right after high school. And, you know, I was reserved most of the time training, but making the move from a combat engineer unit into this very specialized unit was a real good career move for me. I got a lot of experience, and I was able to get some great training. And so some of the things that I did, you know, as it turns out, you know, being in the reserves doesn't mean you're going to be home all the time, I found out. And we were on a mission in Egypt building infrastructure project for a military base out in the middle of Egypt, and that's when 9/11 happened. And we were in the middle of nowhere, and I have to tell you, we were unarmed, because it was just we were military, but we were there working with the Egyptian military and other members of our military, and we were building, like I said, building the distribution system for this what was going to be called at the time Mubarak Military City, and wouldn't be called that now. So we couldn't get any information. There wasn't any radio information. Everything we were getting were rumors. I mean, the first we heard was a Piper Cub hit one of the towers. Then we had heard that, you know, just off the wall stuff, that the Commander General that was supposed to come in and take over the base was killed in a plane crash. We just heard all of this fragmented, incorrect information. So finally, the word got to us that, you know, this happened, this awful thing happened. We knew what that meant right away. We knew, you know, but in the long term. In the short term, we had no idea. We were in a Muslim country, unarmed, and we had no information. We just didn't know what this was going to turn into. We had no idea at the time who was pulling the strings and who it was going to embolden. We just didn't know. So it was a pretty wild time for us. We were situated in Alexandria, and you could just see the Mediterranean. If you can picture a pretty flat desert, just on the horizon, it was just this blue tint, and that was the Mediterranean. That's how far we were away. So I was a senior NCO at the time, non-commissioned officer, and I tried to calm the younger soldiers. I said, look, 7th Fleet's out there, they could be in here in a minute and grab us if something gets weird. And about that time, I was calming them down. There were about 20 armored personnel carriers come screaming across the desert. And I'm like, oh boy, you know, what's this gonna be, right? Because you just didn't know. And you get into a situation where your mind's playing tricks with you. You know, the Egyptians gonna say, hey, you know, this is it. And we knew we had treaties with them. Yeah. So anyway, instead of coming in and lighting the place up, they come around our whole area and faced outward, thankfully, and they took up a defensive perimeter around our area, probably thinking the same thing we were thinking, and we were locked down for quite a while, maybe a week or so, and anyway, we came back to a very different country than the one we left, and it was very different. The feel was, when I got off the plane and saw all the flags hanging off the houses, and it was very emotional for all of us, because we all knew we were going to be in combat within a year anyway, and that's exactly what happened. So that episode was over, and we started training immediately. We sent a team to Afghanistan. It was uneventful. Everybody was okay, and it was my team ended up about a year later going into Iraq right after the invasion. So we set up shop in the what we would call BIOP, is what the soldiers called it, but it was the Baghdad International Airport, and prior to that it was Saddam International Airport. But it wasn't Saddam International Airport after we got there, because we had bucket trucks and we went up and took those letters down. In fact, there's a picture that ended up in the paper of me taking a big neon S right down off that airport. And I was pretty proud of that. So we were the only ones that could reach them, and that right when we got on the ground, one of the big wigs there said, tell them to get those letters off that building. And that's what we did. So the rest of my tour there, we spent working not so much on the civilian infrastructure, but we just tried to keep the troops spaces going, because we were a small team. I had a 12-man team, and we would, they occupied the airport. That was a big base camp, and the 2nd Armored Division was there, and as well as some other big units out of Europe. And they came in, and we were able to get power, the existing infrastructure, which very different from what's here. It was different frequency, 50 hertz system, and everything different. But we were trained to recognize this stuff and be able to work on it, and that's what we did. And we were the only team that could work energized primary in theater. We were very sought after, and we would, and that's what we did. We went out to different base camps. We actually, one of our missions we spent was, we put a lighting system in the Abu Ghraib prison, which is infamous, I know. And but the places we were outside of the prison. What a lot of people don't understand is a big complex, and where all those things that got in the paper, where all that happened was inside the buildings. They had a big tent city out there where there were a mixed bag of civilian criminals and detainees that we caught off the battlefield. And basically, they were in tents in triple concertina wire, and there was a couple thousand of them with about 100 MPs. So they were like, look, we need light on these guys at night. This is a problem. So we helped them out with that, and we went over there, and we were able to install a lighting system for them, and they were very thankful for that. Prior to those two hairy tours, a couple of years before, I was activated for my first time as a reservist in, well, it would have been 95, so it was several years before, for a little known hurricane called Hurricane Marilyn. It was about this big in our paper back then, but it devastated the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. So I went with a small team down there. We met other active duty soldiers down there, and we flew into a dark island, St. Thomas. Nothing, not an electron flowing through that island. In fact, the whole the airport was shut down. We just came in, and there we go. Hopefully nobody comes out on the runway. So we immediately started placing generators, sewer pumps, police stations, fire stations. We were trying to get everything going. We had kind of a martial law thing going down there because there was chaos. There was raw sewage running through the street. They had nothing. So you do things in this way. You try to get post office. It was important to get things running, and that's what we did. And so we worked closely with civilian members of the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and And I walked into one of the offices, one of the civilian contractors working there, and there was a secretary there named Tamara, and she lives on Bartlett Drive right now. So I met her down there, and we kept our relationship going, and she made the crazy decision to leave that place and come up here, because she was born and raised in St. Thomas. Her parents still live down there.
Oh,
And-
down here.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's so anyway, that was one mission that we were pretty proud of, and although it kind of went out under the radar, people didn't realize how bad it was down there, and that we had to actually put the military down there. I was awarded the Humanitarian Relief Medal down there for my role in that, and it was really a very rewarding mission for me, and I met my wife down there. It was a big deal. You know, I go back there all the time because my in-laws live there, so it's pretty good. It's I know. And in Iraq, I was a platoon sergeant. We kind of a detachment element we were organized into, and I was the detachment sergeant. I had a warrant officer at the time, and he had he got called home. He had a very serious thing happen in his family, so they said, you know what, you're not just the detachment sergeant, you're the detachment officer in charge too. So my life got very busy, and I would go out on missions during the day and have to beat feet back to the Tactical Operations Center at night, and while they were all comfortable there drinking coffee, I was still in my body armor, sweating to death, trying to make their meeting and catching crap about being late. But that was my life over there, so a lot of people noticed that, and I was awarded the Bronze Star for Meritorious Service over there for my role in picking that up. You know, as I like to say, not making too many mistakes, but God knows we all make them over there. And all my guys came home with all their fingers and toes, and I was very, very proud of that. We did what we could over there, and that's all you can do. So after that, enough people noticed my job in the military, where I was put in for a pretty prestigious medal with the American Society of Military Engineers, called the Sturgis Medal, and that is given to one soldier each year, and that in the engineer category, and it's given to the best platoon sergeant in each component. So for the reserves in 2003, I was awarded that medal. And what was interesting about that is, any of you who've been in the military, they don't give you anything, you know, and they don't like to spend money. And they actually flew my wife at their expense down to Fort Leonard Wood, the head of Army Engineering, with me for the Engineers Ball and to receive that award. I had never seen anything like that. I never saw the Army come cocoa with money and say, hey, bring your wife, we'll pay for it. I think they even gave her expense money. That was something wild. We still talk about that today, my Army buddies and I. But that was a great honor, and it was pretty much getting towards the end of my career. After that, I was selected to become a warrant officer, and I went to warrant officer school in Fort Rucker, Alabama, which was tough. It was a tough school. I was an experienced non-commissioned officer with 16, 18 years in at the time, and now I got this screaming in my face, and just crazy wildness. And it was a tough school, and they really put your head in a vice in that school. A lot of chopper pilots in there and everything. It wasn't MOS specific. It wasn't job specific. We were all mixed together for this core course, and they just beat up on you constantly and see if they can get you to quit. I didn't quit, so that was towards the end of my career. I became a warrant officer and retired a Chief Warrant Officer 3. So it was that was the career I worked pretty hard to maintain in parallel with my civilian career, but I was able to, you know, I got exposed to so many things that really helped me for where I am today, and helped me hopefully be a good general manager in this position, because I I was able to experience all these different things. And it's just been a nice ride for me. I've been all around doing these different things, and it's my pleasure to settle down here in sleepy Georgetown, as I say, with as much affection as I can muster. So the Georgetown Municipal Light Department is a municipal light department. We are public power. We are owned by the ratepayers. The claim to fame for these places, the places I mentioned, Hingham, Peabody, Taunton, Georgetown, is low rates and reliability. We kick the butts of the investor-owns in that way. That's why it's so popular to live in an area where you have public power. And we really take that serious. And most decisions I make take those two things into consideration. How can I keep the rates low and keep the reliability the best it can possibly be? So the light plan is here for you, and it's yours. You know, you're the ratepayers, and that's you know, I'm going to try to keep it a good place as Wayne handed it over to me.
Does it run at a profit?
No, it can't run at a profit by law. We have to. It's a great question. We have to make sure that we keep that. We'll have to adjust things if revenues get too high, and it'll come in the form of a lower rate, or there'd be some other fund we would put it in that would contribute to system reliability, like an emergency fund or something like that.
We'll sure appreciate a lower rate.
What's that?
I say, we'll sure appreciate a lower rate.
No, I know, unfortunately, yeah, that I don't see coming because of gas prices.
Yeah.
Gas is going through the roof, and for anybody that doesn't know, what we pay, here in the United States it's probably about 25% of what people pay overseas. Now, we are awash with natural gas now. Some very smart people are referring to the United States as the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. And we will be exporting natural gas everywhere. Now, that sounds like a good thing, and as a country, it is a good thing. But what's going to happen is we're going to start to pay what everybody else is paying. And that's going to be tough, because almost all of your power is generated with natural gas, or it influences the prices. And that's a big part of it.
They used to give, I think it was Christmas, December electric bill. They used to, if they had extra money, they had to get rid of it.
Yep.
And lower the bill for that month.
Yeah,
Quite a few years back, though.
yeah, there's ways to lower it. I don't see it in the forecasting because of the fuel.
Yeah.
There's other things too. We pay to get the power here. We don't produce it. So we actually buy power from, Maine. There's a wind farm in Maine, hydroelectric plants and different things. We pay all the way for that power to get here, so to speak. It's a little more complicated than that, but and it travels over most of the way National Grid lines, and they get a premium. They get their money from us. It's an enormous amount of money. Now I'm looking into a couple of solar projects which should alleviate some of that, but it's going to be a drop in the bucket, because we wouldn't own them, but we would have a power purchase agreement with these. If these plants go in town, they would actually generate directly onto the grid, and we would pay them, and there wouldn't be any of the middleman costs. And it would also lower the system peak as it's exposed out of our substations to these other entities which charge us for our peak demand. So it helps in a couple of different ways, and I'm really involved in those, and I'm looking at the system impact right now and how it will affect us and if it's feasible. It is. It's great the green is good. It's not where it needs to be. A lot of people misunderstand it. When you buy, let's say, a solar panel, you need to look at that panel, what it costs, how long it's going to last, and what is it going to generate. And you're going to take the capital investment in that, and you're going to squash that down into a kilowatt per hour. What's that going to give you? Now, it's still not cheaper than how we buy it now. It just isn't, and it wouldn't be, it's only viable now because of the tax credits, and there's recs that are given by government entities at the state level and the federal level. As the efficiencies go up and these things get better, one piece of it is storage. Storage is the holy grail of the renewable energy world, because when those windmills are turning at night and there's no load because everybody's in bed, they're not, it could be going somewhere, being stored, a big battery bank, for instance, but there's many other ways. And then in the morning, you can use that power. That technology is not where it needs to be either. When it is, and when the efficiencies get better, it'll be a different world. It really will. Eventually, it'll be a different world. So,
Have you looked into Groveland's solar panel?
yep, I know quite a bit about it. The manager over there is a friend of mine, Mike Cludia.
Yeah.
His is, it's roughly 3 megawatts, and it's working out well for him. He's got a nice plant, and he's got a nice agreement with the people that are running it. I consult with him often on this because he's further down the road than me. So,
Have you ever seen anything like that in Georgetown? I mean, do
with
you
the
envision anything like that?
I
in
do, yeah.
Georgetown?
We're looking at 2 plants right now, not as big as that, but one's a meg and a half proposed up in the Andover Street area, and one is 1.7 megs down in the Carlton Drive area near 95. We just need to see the feasibility if it'll work. It doesn't always work with your system, and we have engineers working on it now.
There's one over in Havel on Hilldale Avenue.
Right.
How big is that?
I don't know. You know, it's funny. I just drove by there the other day with my sons. We were going to play golf, and I looked at it, and I kind of in my mind measured it against the one in Groveland. I figured it might be half the size, maybe. So I thought it might be a megawatt and a half, something like that. But I'm not sure.
There's one off of Scotland Road in Newburyport too.
Oh, there is? Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one.
And in Salisbury off of Rabbit Road?
Oh, there is, yeah. They're getting out there. In fact, just recently, within the last couple of days, the 300 megawatt cap, I guess, that the state wanted to see was just reached, and they're talking about expanding it. So it's being built out there. It is out there.
In plain English, what is 1 megawatt or 1 megabank? What does it mean in houses?
In a megawatt, in our lowest consumption period for the town of Georgetown, which is 3,400 customers, something like that. Let's talk about Sunday afternoon, everything's shut off, it's 65, 70 degrees out there, it's our lowest consumption. We might be down to like 3 megawatts, you know, so in this example, you're looking at maybe 1,000 houses or 1,000 customers, maybe a mixed bag of residential and commercial per megawatt, just for ease of numbers.
Is that per hour?
It can be a megawatt hour over time. So you get your draw in real time. If we all turned all our toasters on at once and this town went up to 5 megawatts, it would start going. And that's what I would be paying for, what the plant would be paying for. And that's what you would all be paying for, your little piece of it. And so, you know, the first hour, if it stayed, it sustained, it'd be 5 megawatt hours. And we pay, that's the unit that we pay. You pay kilowatt hours. That's what you're paying at your house.
Do you still buy from Seabrook?
Yes, we do. And Seabrook is going to, in the next few years, the capital costs are actually gonna be recovered from Seabrook. And we should see a benefit from that. But unfortunately, those transmission costs and the gas prices that the projections we're seeing, we're gonna be in good shape compared to everybody else, because everybody is seeing the same costs, the natural gas, the transmission, all the smaller munis that don't generate themselves, and even the ones that do. They'll see those costs, so it's almost like we're gonna get somewhere, but we're gonna give it too. So that's just, it's, I'm gonna do the best I can to keep them down, I'm gonna do the best at the same time, maintaining the plant as best I can. But there's some forces out there that are coming that, well, we'll work with them, but it's not the rosiest picture, let's put it that way, with the natural gas.
Compared to most towns around,
Go ahead, young fellow.
compared to most towns around, Georgetown takes excellent care on the maintenance of all the lines, trees and whatnot.
I think so, yeah, I think, I look, you know, as a resident and a ratepayer here before I got the job, I was very impressed. Because I'm in the business, so what am I doing when I'm driving through town, looking up in the air and everything, even though it's not my system? So I noticed very early that the system was very updated and in great shape. And, you know, a lot of that happened under Wayne Snow's watch. He should be commended for that.
Yeah, I know it's, quite a few years back, I was up in New Hampshire, I think it was Bowles, I'm not sure. And I sat on the side of a road for maybe 5 hours. And these big giant helicopters with two
Oh, yeah.
picking up these monstrosity poles, and picking them up, and zoom, wait in and set that thing up, and
Right.
about 5 minutes goes by, he zooms right back, picks up another one.
Yeah.
Man, nothing slow about them guys.
They'll pick up whole lattice towers that way.
Yeah,
Enjoy it.
that's what
It's
they were.
amazing. I didn't do a lot of transmission in my career, but that, believe it or not, that's the easiest way to get that structure from point A to point B, because in between that, you'd need like a tracked vehicle dragging it on a dolly and everything.
They don't cut
so-
nothing, I don't know how they did it, how they got in and got all those things, but
Right.
that's it.
It's quite a show. That constructing these things on a big level is
They said another thing, there's
impressive.
something like 6 lines or whatever it is, and he said, they got a spool, and that machine picks up and goes down on one side of it, and the line's on the ground, and then they'll raise it up, and they'll hook it on, and go down the next one, raise it up, hook it.
Yeah, yeah,
Simplify things.
right. Well, we're paying for that transmission line, you know, we pay every month. They don't do it for free. So,
Call quick.
Well, I think we're probably to wrap up.
okay, thank you, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for coming, Dave.
Thank you, good to meet you too.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. Oh, I don't have anything more interesting to say, so.